Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to an all-new Talkin Movies. I'm your host, the real Geno Reynolds, and today on the program we're going to be talking about a remake of a 1972 blaxploitation film. That film is Superfly. Now, near the end of this review, I'm probably going to be throwing out some spoilers. In fact, I'm going to be throwing out a lot of spoilers, so I wanted to make sure I gave you fair warning. But of course, we're going to talk about the movie first and just how I felt about it in a general sense. That way you can decide whether or not you want to go see it. So what's this movie about? Youngblood Priest, a young drug dealer in Atlanta, has his sights set on retiring and getting out of the game. He devises a plan to increase his business so that he can make his move. Little does he know that the moves that he's making could be his last. Look, I know I've seen the original Superfly, but it's been a long time. I did go back and read up on it, though, so that I could make some comparisons and some observations about the two movies. First thing I have to say about this remake is this. First, I have to say, if you're going to claim that the director of your movie is quote-unquote revolutionary, then you better back it up. The director of this movie is Director X, who is mostly known for directing music videos for a massive array of artists, such as Usher, R. Kelly, Busta Rhymes, Drake, Rihanna, and many, many others. His IMDb list is pretty long when it comes to music videos, so nobody can say that he hasn't put in work. So, what about the way this movie looks and feels? Did Director X do a good job? He already has the thought of updating what many consider a classic in the original 1972 film. He already has that to go up against. I have to say that when it came to capturing the excess of the movie's world and the main characters' lifestyles, he did a pretty good job. I wouldn't call it revolutionary, don't get me wrong, but it was pretty good. A lot of the scenes involving clubs, both music and stripper variety, did feel a lot like music videos, like when it came to like the drinking and the booty shaking and money raining, etc. All that stuff. It came off the way it was supposed to. It was supposed to show this lavish, excessive lifestyle that these guys were living in, and it looked it. So I thought he did a good job there. As for just about everything else, and if I'm being honest, the club stuff too, it came off as kind of silly to me. The fight scenes, the acting, the car chase, the shootouts, including some characters using gangsta-style grips on their firearms, the way that doesn't aim very well, the sex scenes, etc., all felt pretty silly. And I know I'm going to keep probably using that word, so sorry. Even though it did feel this way, I think it was supposed to, sort of. And here's where my real issues with the movie begin, because I think it's supposed to be, feeling like the old film where, maybe back then they took it serious, I don't know, but people started to see it as kind of silly. And I think he was going for a silly feel to this, but then again, there was parts that weren't, and we're going to talk about that. The movie, at times, at least to me, most of the time, felt like it was taking itself way too seriously. Maybe it's trying to stay balanced on that fine line between serious and campy, but it just really didn't work for me tonally. The acting from Trevor Jackson as Priest is just too straight and almost over-dramatic. Again, this may have been a style choice of either the actor or the director, but it took me out of the movie. As for the other actors, it's a pretty mixed bag. Some of them are taking things pretty serious, such as Michael Kenneth Williams, who's probably has the best performance in the movie, which honestly I wasn't surprised with. And some embrace the campiness, such as Outkast Big Boy, who plays the mayor of Atlanta. The lack of balance doesn't help the overall feel of the movie. Here's where I might be getting a bit spoilery in the review. Long story short, I felt that the acting and lack of tonal balance not working outweighed what did. Even the stuff that did was a little too silly for me. I was hoping that I could say that this one was going to be one of those it's bad, but that's what makes it good type of movies. Like the remake of Shaft, for example, another remake of a blaxploitation film. But it just doesn't get there. Okay, so I'm about to get into spoilers. Well, if you couldn't already tell, I don't really recommend this movie. I mean, give it a shot yourself. I mean, you may think differently than me, but for me, it didn't work. Okay, so it's spoiler territory time. So are you still with me? Okay, here we go. And we're going to be doing a lot of comparisons between the original and this remake with these spoilers here. Because it's hard for me to talk about this movie without really talking about this movie. One big difference between this and the original film is that they're really trying hard to make Priest a good guy in the new one. In the original, it's pretty clear that Priest is not one of the good guys. For example, he threatens to force the wife of one of his clients into prostitution if the client doesn't pay up, and unless the guy, he wants the guy to pull off a crime for him. In this one, the whole I don't want to ever hurt anybody or have to kill anyone, despite becoming one of the city's biggest cocaine dealers, of course, just didn't fly. They were trying to make him just this, well, deep down, he's a good guy. It's really hard to explain. It's like, dude, you're a drug dealer. Okay, you're not doing good. But anyway, in the original, Priest had a girl and a mistress, which he has to break it off with in the end. In the new one, Priest just has 2 girlfriends, and they're both cool with everything. And I mean everything. In the original, Georgia, his girlfriend, wants Priest to just quit the life. She doesn't care that they're poor. She loves him, and that's all that matters. In the new one, Georgia's cool with all of it. Sure, she wants to get out too, just like Priest does, but she's with Priest all the way, ride or die, until the end, crime and all. Here's the thing. He still never really comes off as the good guy, despite the movie really trying to get the audience to root for him. Look, he can open up all the community centers he wants. That doesn't change the fact that the product he's been selling has probably been killing lots and lots of people. But because, he gave a group of women a stack of cash, because the bullet was meant for him, that, I guess, makes him the good guy in this movie's eyes. Don't get me wrong, I can root for a villain in a movie. If the villain either stays true to himself or truly feels remorse for his life and wants to change, that kind of character can work, and I can enjoy that type of character. Take Payback, for example, with Mel Gibson. You can root for him because he knows what he is. He's definitely a villain, and he's not trying to be a good guy. I mean, he has a little bit of a moral compass, but it's not much. This new Priest just don't want to eventually die is kind of how his character acts. So it's, he just doesn't want to die, so it's that time to get out. While eventually they try to force a little remorse in the movie on the character when someone that he and others care about gets killed. It's way too little, way too late. His character kind of reminded me of Nino Brown from New Jack City. That is, if Nino ended up wanting to get out, ignored what his product was doing to the public, and got away with everything he did. Then there's the odds. The odds against our main characters, especially our main character. The original Priest's main issue ends up being corrupt cops. The man, if you will. Sure, our new Priest eventually has to deal with a couple of dirty cops. But then he also has to deal with a rival gang. And his mentor. And the Mexican drug cartel. It's a bit much. And while I can't really remember the danger level for the original Priest in the 72 film, at no time did I feel that this new one's life was ever in danger. Ever. The entire runtime of the movie. So, here's another thing that really bothered me. The original Priest had a plan to get enough cocaine that he could sell it all in 4 months for around $1 million. Then he can retire comfortably and find another job. Our new hero gets so much coke and so much money that you're not even sure what he's made. That is until one of his partners buys a $600,000 watch, which oddly enough, Priest gets mad at him for flaunting the money they're making during a really expensive party in Priest's mansion, of course. Then when the cops get involved, they want a $1 million honesty payoff, let's get the ball rolling on this little, of us shaking you down. It was something like that. And then, of course, they're going to take 50% from then on. Here's the kicker. Priest and his girlfriends are set up to run. They have paid for a citizenship in a country with no extradition in cash. Then they complain and worry about not being able to leave. And I got to wondering just how much money do they have? They would show you he's got this safe that's probably, as tall as him, which he was a really tall dude, the guy playing Priest. And it's just full of stacks of cash from front to back, top to bottom. They made a joke about not being able to throw more cash. There's another big stack on their table, and they making jokes they're tossing cash in like it can't get in any more in there. So how much money did they have? Well, we find out. It's something around like $33 million that they transfer to their new country electronically. $33 million. They could have walked at any time, but no. They just had to make sure that they could afford that friggin' yacht at the end. Sure, they may have still had to deal with the cartel problem, but the rest of the problems they probably could have just hidden from with that kind of money. Except they just had to have that yacht, I guess. Look, I know that this movie is supposed to be about getting your piece of the pie, so to speak. But again, the tonal balance really makes Priest's ridiculous plans that actually work come off as silly. Just everything in this movie comes off silly. And if it was trying to capture the tone that we feel about blaxploitation films now, it still misses. I get what they were trying to do, but it still misses for me. And some people it might work. Like I said, when it comes to showing the excess of their lifestyle, I don't know how many times in this movie someone was making it rain. They're showing, that stuff worked. It looked really good. Again, it looked like a music video, but then when you got a music video director directing your movie, it's probably going to work. But as a whole, as a film, I just can't get behind it. Again, I haven't watched the original in a long time, but honestly, I could probably still say you should watch that one instead of this remake. But again, as I always like to say, check out the movie yourself and see what you think about it. That's going to be all for this edition of Talkin Movies. If you like what you've heard here, please subscribe to the Real Geno YouTube channel. Like this video, comment on it, all that good stuff. Until next time, I'm your host, the Real Geno Reynolds. Peace.